Item B, recording the roll.
All present.
Item C, approval of the consent agenda. Are there any changes that we need to be aware of?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, I do have one change. On the last January 13th minutes, I would request that the roll be placed in there. You were all present.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Semo, second by Commissioner Kayer to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any further discussions or concerns on this item? Roll call.
Kayer.
Yes.
Semo.
Yes.
Sim.
Yes.
Sauer.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes. Item D, receive and place on file from the Finance Director one statement of revenue and expenditures and two monthly cash report.
Thank you. Tonight I'm presenting the financials for December. Halfway through the year, we roughly are out 50% to our expenditure budget. First page is the general fund. The departments are all in good shape. Nothing significant really to report department-wise. Looking toward the bottom, toward the fund balance, showing negative $100,000. That's really due to our revenue sharing not being reported here. September and October's revenue sharing was received in December 31st. It didn't get posted until January. And then November and December's revenue sharing will be received in February. So we're about $230,000 have revenue earned, but it's not reported here. So that negative is a little deceiving. The major and local street funds are both in good shape. Nothing significant really. We're seeing the surface maintenance starting to slow down, and the winter maintenance starting to increase in activity. The equipment fund, again, as the snow falls and we're using more equipment, that's seen the increase in that. Water and sewer funds are both right in line with where they should be. Library fund is in good shape, as you can see. Usually we're seeing a bigger negative with the library fund due to penal fines not being received until after fiscal year. Here they've really been watching their expenditures and doing a good job. Very small deficit this time of the year for the library. Civic Center, starting to see the activity increase there. The cemetery seeing a little bit of decrease in activity. And then the smaller funds at the bottom of page 4 are in decent shape. The next report is the cash balances report as of December. All the balances are okay. Nothing significant to report. And the last report is the check register report. Are there any questions?
Paul, I have a question about the Civic Center fund balance. Does that reflect money that's been taken out of their fund balance to help pay for the new ice?
It doesn't hit actually the income statement, which is what this report shows. The expenditures that are going into the Civic Center are all for capital improvements, so they're being capitalized immediately, so they come out of cash, balance sheet item, and go right into their capital assets, another balance sheet item. So it's not reflected directly from in their income statement.
So will we ever see that flow of money from their fund balance to pay for the new ice making, or how will we see that?
In a balance sheet statement, it'll show the running balance of the fund balance in total. This report really here is looking at this fiscal year fund balance. So you're not going to see it in this report here, but certainly in our internal financials, the balance sheet that we print out will certainly show that.
I guess I'd just like to have an idea as time goes by how our projections versus what really happened with the fund balance there.
Sure, and we can certainly look at that.
Again, another good project. Without Ian's effort and the others, this wouldn't happen. So it really, they bring a lot of this stuff forward to us, and whether it's this project or some variation to it. We'll bring it up during our budget process. Again, probably sooner than later with the deadline dates that they're talking. We are going to meet on Tuesday. We get a better idea what the deadline dates are, and when we have to have some decisions made.
I'll say there's a lot to like in what you put forward. So Thank you.
Do we need a motion then to put it on a future agenda?
We'll bring it to you, we'll talk on Tuesday, and look at a little over timeline, when things have to be done by, and we can bring it back at one of the next commission meetings with more information.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ian? Okay, it takes us to new business. Item J, discuss and consider approving Ironwood Carnegie Library's application for a planning grant for renovation of the library and authorizing the signatures.
Hi, thank you for having me on your agenda. I have given you a memo that gave you some of the background. That title is a little misleading. I'm not asking you to give us money or to leave any money. Basically, as my memo indicated, we have been discussing with consultants for a long time our building, and that has resulted in really two goals that we require. One is our existing historic, we are the National Register, and our existing historic building is in dire need of some tender loving care and some big projects, tuck pointing and different restoration projects within. And then the other goal is handicap accessibility. We don't have a bathroom that's handicap accessible, and we need to bring the children and teens room up on the first floor in order for that to be accessible as well. So one of the first steps to that is to have really good planning documents. We've had some conceptual discussions with architects. We need to move to the next phase. It's still a planning phase, and that will require $15,000. There is a grant from the National Preservation Fund that will give us half, and we will look for the other half as well, not from you, but from other resources. But because we don't physically own the building, the city owns the building, I have to include a letter from the city that says, you know, you own the building, but you're giving us permission to go ahead with this grant on behalf of the building. So the action that I am requiring you, that is required, that I'm requesting of you, is that you do approve us proceeding with that grant, and that you will give permission to the appropriate signator to sign that letter. Once we go forward and have these planning docs, these are really the key to us applying for future grants for the building stage. There's a couple of very positive things out there. One is that Lansing, among libraries, is looking to fund more Upper Peninsula projects. There are some available capital grants out there. And in addition, the consultants, the architectural consultants that we are consulting with, part of their to-do would be to advise us on grants. So we really need this first phase in order to present something in the future to go ahead with the capital improvements.
Commissioners, questions at this point?
A few years ago, did you have a plan to, a renovation plan for the library?
Yes, and we're still working with that same plan, but that was a conceptual plan. You have to take it to the next step and have more specific drawings, and unfortunately, those have to be done by architects. So in order to get to the next phase, we need to do this next more professional drawing and accompanying documents. I'm not an architect, so don't quote me on this, but they're not the building documents, but they're sort of the step between a conceptual idea and those building documents. And I kind of need those in order to then go forward with writing other grants when we get to the capital improvement stage. But today's request is not asking you to approve that capital improvement phase. We would come back to you, of course, for that and show the idea and everything. This is just to further us along and get those planning documents. The added advantage is that it does also include advice on grants and where the people can find grants, so. I think we have the right match in terms of the consultant, we just need the money to pay them.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Army Records application and authorizing corporate signatures.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Semo, second by Commissioner Sim to approve Ironwood Carnegie Library application for a planning grant for renovation of the library and authorize appropriate signatures. Any further discussion or concerns? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item K, discuss and consider approving a request from the Ironwood County Library for a one-time grant in the amount of $5,000 from the city of Ironwood to be used for the purchase of books.
Thank you very much for the previous item. This is a request for money. As you know, we pride ourselves on being independent of the city. We have never been funded, well, at least in my time, we have not been funded by to the best of my knowledge, it has never come from the city of Ironwood's general fund. We have been independently funded. We take care of the building on our own, under our own budget. We pay for insurance, we pay for utilities. We are autonomous. Unfortunately, since as long as I can see from the letters, at least dating back to the 1960s, the library has been somewhat reliant on the Ironwood Township for some of the revenue to have a certain level of services. Right or wrong, that is where we are. And as you know, the Ironwood Township has chosen to decrease, because of their budget issues, decrease their contribution to us. That has resulted in a $14,500 deficit. Our entire budget is $130,000, so you can understand what a big hit that was for us. We do not have a lot of discretionary items. Basically, all money is accounted for in the building and minimal staff. The only thing that can be moved around is our material funds and our programming funds, staffing for programming. So that hit basically eliminated most of our material budget. Books, magazines, and audiobooks, and without that, basically, no one's gonna come to the library. We are a very cutting-edge library. We are grateful to belong to a wonderful regional co-op that allows us to cost share across the Upper Peninsula and be able to provide our patrons with downloadable ebooks, downloadable magazines. I mean, downloadable magazines, think of the savings alone. One subscription is $30. So you can save hundreds of dollars by going through the library. And we have, of course, downloadable audiobooks as well. And then we have a wonderful diverse collection and a wonderful, wonderful programming schedule that has just done amazing things. We have a drama club that is going to be doing a production. They did a production already in the previous year. So I cannot say enough about the wonderful things that we do there. And because the township is on a calendar fiscal year, and we are on a July to June fiscal year, their contract ends in December. So that is kind of an added impact of that because we can't budget for anything, we don't know if we'll get another contract or what their contribution will be. So basically that really hits us hard. We have many ideas on how we'd like to solve this problem. Obviously, we need to find some other revenue stream. We need to rearrange our budget to accommodate this somehow. We don't have any options, but because this sort of hit us in January, we don't really have an ability to scramble for this next fiscal year and fix it for this next fiscal year. However, we have approached the township in a letter asking them to consider a millage instead of a contract. We do a lot of fundraising. We've already fundraised almost $9,000 on our own. We are trying our best, but here we are, and unfortunately, time is running out, and we would really appreciate a one-time, cross my heart, don't die, a one-time $5,000 grant, just to carry us through the next fiscal year and give us that time to negotiate and to, circle the wagons and try to figure out some other revenue streams. So the action that I'm asking you respectfully to take is to grant us that $5,000.
Just to refresh our memory, how is the library funded?
Sure. It's funded kind of a weird way. No other state funds libraries this way. But first of all, you levy a millage every year, and that's about $82,000 from property tax. That's a dedicated levy to the library. Then we get what are called penal fines, which are when you speed and go get a county. We get the portion of your ticket that's penal or punishment. When I first started working in 2006, that we got around $75,000 to $80,000 every year, and it was a sizable amount for us. In 2012, that amount was $43,000. In 2013, that amount was $33,000. In 1 year, we lost $10,000. In the 6 years, we've lost $50,000. It's something that we can't budget for because that comes at the end of the year, and it's quite unstable. The court is just not collecting anymore. They're having difficulty collecting, so people are going to jail instead of. I hate to benefit from people's, but that is unfortunately the way the libraries are funded. It's through the Michigan Constitution. So people take community service instead of paying the fine, a variety of things, and that has really resulted in a huge hit for us. We are then, the other major portion was the township contracts. We get a very minimal state grant of $2,000. Half of that goes to our co-op, and it's well worth it. They provide us our technical services, our computer services. They fix all of our computers and do mass purchases, and they provide us, it's well worth money for that. So, and then we have fines and different miscellaneous things, but those are the major portions of how we're funded. And we just don't have a lot of options of getting more funds. We write grants like crazy, and we've been very successful, knock on wood, for that, and we do our own fundraising, not only in Peel, but we do a fundraising event every year, and then our friends at the library also do 2 book sales and brat sales during the summer, so we're out there dancing as fast as we can to raise that money.
Well, I guess my primary concern is city taxpayers already do pay a good chunk towards the library. And for whatever reason, the township decided that they were not getting enough bang for their buck, or they were paying too much for their services, and we have to respect that.
That was actually not their decision. Their decision was that their budget had decreased because of tree. They were relying on some budgetary means, tree stumpage, and because that had decreased, they had to decrease their budget. I'm not aware that they said that they didn't feel that they were getting a bank, but 62,500 is a phenomenal value. But they did reduce it, what they communicated to me, based on the fact that their budget had decreased by 150,000.
But at the same time, it's not, in my opinion, fair to make the city pick up slack, so to speak.
Correct, and that's why we are definitely looking at alternative options. Unfortunately, though, the city residents will suffer if we don't get this money because they won't have the services that they've grown accustomed to. We won't be able to purchase those. So in the end, it's really the city residents that are going to suffer for that. They've given this their taxpayer money, and they're not going to get the value of it because we don't have the money to provide the library, quality library services.
I mean, I'm with you a little bit. I guess the one thing that's really missing, and I would sort of expect it for, asking a grant, is that I kind of want to see some plans of how you, I mean, if it's a one-time thing, how this is going to be made up. I would love to know sort of what the future, I want to know what the plan is. I really like to see a plan of action.
Definitely. Unfortunately, because we were notified in January, and we're still in January, notified in December rather, and we're in January, our fiscal year starts June, we just don't have the ability to come up with that money by, well, we have to do a budget by April. So we have very few months to do that. We fundraised the most we could. As I said, between November and now, we've fundraised $9,000. So we've kind of done what we thought we could do in that time. We need to have that money now in order to be able to budget for the next year. If I don't know that I have that 5,000, then we're gonna, have to accommodate that, and that's, staff and books and services. Our plan and what we've already implemented is that we would like the townships to ask for a millage from their residents, to send it to the residents. That is our plan. And if the residents say no, then we know that the township residents are not interested in library services, and we can rearrange our thoughts accordingly. At this point, we don't know that, and so we would like this next fiscal year to be able to do more planning, to get out there and ask the residents, to have the time to really plan appropriately. There's just not enough time between January and April to do that kind of plan. You know exactly where the money's going to. It's going to books. It's not going to anything frivolous. It's just to maintain the services. But between now and June 1st, there's just no way that we can identify another source between now and June 1st, or July 1st. Well, actually, we can do it by April when we do the budget, to come up with that money.
So I think what we're looking at here is just a fiscal year fix, a one-time fix. I know that the library has done a lot of programs and events and raise money, and as I visit the library, I see it as a haven for a lot of people, or a variety of people. And I think it'd be important for us to invest into this, and it's investing in our community in light of these recent budget cuts. I would just have a question for Scott. If the commission did approve something like this tonight, this would come, assume, out of our general fund budget.
It would be potentially a general fund expenditure. We also have some discretionary funds through the timber sales. So that's another area that you've got some dollars available, and you're also going through another timber sale right now, and we haven't gotten the proceeds. So just a couple options there if you want to take action.
I think, did we have X amount of dollars, is the money set aside for a match grant for a downtown which we did not receive?
We had some dollars for the downtown dig grant that we did not receive. We are actually reallocating some other projects, so we have to look at that and reprioritize some things. But right now, probably your best source of funds would be the timber dollars, or if you want a general fund, then we have to reallocate,
Would we need to itemize that source at this time?
I think if you identify, if you want to take action, identify the $5,000, you should identify the source. Again, this is going through the budget process, so it is for the 2014-15 budget. So there's a little bit of time there to work through some of that.
I remember when we talked about the dig grant, there was the possibility of using some of the rent money for the Social Security office.
That was one of the, there were a number of sources that we proposed for that, and that was one.
I guess ultimately it's all the same pie.
It all comes back into the general fund, so.
Don't forget, we have US 2 issues to talk about too. We have to identify funding sources for that as well. $5,000 per books, I'm sorry, it's a lot.
Is there any way that,
Well, I've shown you exactly how it's spent, and 5,000 is actually,
For 1 year, I think we could, cover for a year. And then identify additional sources down the line.
absolutely would welcome your help with that.
I know you've already looked at different options when our fiscal year, going into fiscal year is coming up. So, I think it's important that we invest in the community, so I will start by making a motion that we approve the request from the Ironwood Carnegie Library for a one-time grant in the amount of $5,000 from the city of Ironwood to be used for the purchase of books, and the source to be named would be the timber sales.
I will second that.
Motion by Mayor Corcoran, second by Commissioner Seaver to approve the request from the Ironwood Carnegie Library for one-time grant, amount of $5,500 from the city of Ironwood to be used for the purchase of books source would be the timber sales. Any further discussions on this topic?
I have one question. It's a public library, so you can't charge a fee anyway, right?
Right.
So like you can't, Iowa Township resident wants to enter, you can't.
That's correct, we can't charge for, if we're having a program, we can't charge anybody a fee for that.
That's the only question I want to ask.
Have you gotten any feedback? I know it's a policy decision, a voting position, any feedback from the township people or the board as to whether or not they support a village? And what's really hard.
So I have not gotten any feedback from them. We do have several township patrons who tell us that they are very disappointed in their decision. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the way you look at it, we're a library and our patrons are people who like to read. They don't like to stand up and talk and advocate. So they're quiet, and it's really hard to get them to speak. But they have been speaking to us, and I hope that does turn around and they do speak to their voted representatives. It's kind of not up to the library. The residents themselves are gonna have to decide that that's what they want to do.
Okay, we have a motion from Mayor Corcoran and a second by Commissioner Seaman to approve the request. Any further discussions or concerns? Roll call.
Tower.
No.
Care.
Yes.
Seymour.
Yes.
Sim.
No.
Corcoran.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Item L, discuss reviewing the current ordinance regarding parking of recreational vehicles.
Thank you. We are the property owners of the Big Box with number 1, and the property is to the north of us. Where the cursor is, was purchased and the existing structures were torn down. And it's being used for 4 recreational vehicles and there's management. And property ownership of the property to the north. If there's a house in the background, and I know that if the owner of that purchased the property that RV is on, it would extend the backyard of that property according to the current property code. And so the RV vehicles are in the backyard, and that's in line with your current RV parking ordinance. And there is nothing in the current parking ordinance that limits the number of RVs. And so there's nothing against any codes with this current parking situation. However, that is our front yard view. It is the backyard of the adjoining property, as I explained, but they were placed on property that was once the front yard of the structures that were torn down. So we are asking you to approve a revised RV parking ordinance that would limit the number of RVs being parked on property. I feel that the property owner would probably have one RV, and it would be licensed to the property owner, and that the parking of that single RV would not be the front view of neighboring properties. I've asked you all to think about what you look at when you open your front. That's what we see on our front door and all of our north-facing windows, and that's also our driveway.
Commissioners, questions at this point? Mike, I guess for the speaker, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Becky,
Becky,
Pietro Catelli.
thank you.
Spell it.
So commissioners, any questions for Becky? Okay, Michael, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So this request, the Patrick Catelli's first came to Planning Commission in November and brought this issue up. Staff then reviewed the question at hand. It wasn't an issue for the Planning Commission because it wasn't within the zoning ordinance. So we discussed it with Patrick Catelli's and told them that if they wanted to move forward with this request, they would have to come before the City Commission to consider a revision to the ordinance based on the request. It's an isolated incident, at least that we know of from staff's perspective. This is the only complaint that we've heard of. As they mentioned, the property is currently in compliance with what's out there. It's just, in their opinion, unsightly, and they would like the ordinance changed. Generally, we don't recommend to staff to change ordinances for isolated incidences, unless it becomes more of a problem, there are no complaints, or unless you really feel that it is an issue that needs to be addressed.
Do you know of any other communities that have limits on recreational vehicle parking?
My only experience is from Illinois, and where I worked previously. And I'll tell you, Illinois is obviously different than the UP, based on our recreation and preferences up here. In Illinois, you weren't permitted to park RVs on your lot. You had to, park them in a storage facility. But I think, that's obviously the preference, really. And I think it's commonplace up here for outdoor recreational vehicles, ATVs, snowmobiles, things of that nature. It's kind of the culture up here. But again, it's a preference. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really what you feel is appropriate.
And all the RVs are licensed?
As far as we know, yes.
If they weren't licensed, then they would be non-compliant, is that correct?
I can't speak to that. I defer to Jason Allen and our engineer on those issues.
They would be considered light if they were not licensed. I believe them all to be though.
Is there any other way to conceptually conceive of this as, it's not a commercial, but it's, I'm sure you've looked at it in its different ways.
The ordinance states parking in the side and rear yard is permitted. Doesn't state anything about quantities or numbers or anything.
So So could a person have 20 cars in their driveway
If they're all licensed,
if
I'm
they're all
sure.
licensed? One of the thoughts I have is just if you could check communities like Holton, Marquette, Iron Mountain, see what the other similar communities to us that aren't, if they're doing anything, if they've had a need. I understand the not addressing one individual case, but this may be just the first time it's come up. It certainly would be an annoyance to me to have to look at this every day.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a good neighbor policy. Are the property owners here?
That's me.
Hi, I thought that might be you. Why four? Is my question.
They're just, we park them there for the winter, just for storage for the winter time. Because I have 4 lots, and when she said that they were behind, or in the front yard of the old house that was there, they're behind where the old house used to be. And their driveway going to their house, they have an easement to go, that's all my property. They have an easement to go 110 feet, not the other 70 to get to the road. So they put up a fence there already across the front yard before. Those campers have been parked up there for almost 11 years. And I bought that property, and now they started complaining about it.
All right, I guess we're sort of looking at the thing as a whole, I guess.
They're just parked there for the winter time. They're gone by May.
So commissioners, no action tonight. Rick, you had mentioned, would you like to take a look at this at another time and see what the outcome of it or if it's already been considered?
I guess I would be interested in seeing what similar communities do action on Iron Mountain.
Do you guys have anything else to say? You guys? Honestly, I wouldn't like to look at it every day. You know,
I put them there they're there just for winter time. We park them there just for the winter. They're off to the side. They're not right in their front window. If you look out their windows for the downstairs, it's on the garage side. When they look out their windows, they look at a fence anyway. They're looking right out a fence.
do you have something to say?
I guess I would just like to say that, well, I believe Commissioner Ayers came up and taken a look personally, and I would encourage you guys to take a drive up. Also, I'm not saying this is us against him thing. An ordinance is citywide, and so this could happen to any of your front yards because it's not against any post.
It's not your front yard.
So
We're not going to get into an argument match right now. I think what the commission needs to do is decide to see what neighboring communities do as far as limiting the amount of recreational vehicles permitted in a yard. And at that point, once we hear what other communities are doing, we can make a decision that it's Ironwood. So tonight is just more or less information gathering to see what direction the commission wants to take and just to hear what situation exists right now.
And I will say that I would like to take a look too. I was out of town and didn't get back till late today. And but again, it's an individual situation. We don't make an ordinance based on one place.
And we can gather the information and let the two parties know when we bring it back to the commission, so they can be part of that discussion too.
That'd be a lot better.
Any other action comments? Okay, thank you. This takes us to item M, discuss and consider accepting proposal from Macro Pollock Inland to conduct the city's annual audit for the fiscal years ending June 30th, 14, 15, and 16.
Thank you. I put together a memo for the packets. The 3-year agreement that we've had with Macro Pollock Inland was up this last fiscal year. They put together a new proposal for the next 3 years. The first year ending June 30th, 2014 would be a 1% decrease from this year's fee, and then increasing an additional 1% each year thereafter. We just went through the workshop with them. They went over the details of the audit. times, but it is what they're there for. Additional things that I do use them for is a source as we have funding questions that come up with compliance issues. It's nice that they're right down the block to use as a resource throughout the year. So, I mean, they're receptive to it because the questions we ask now are the things that they don't have to resolve later. So we get that done right away. It's nice to have such a reputable and competent firm here in town. And it's my recommendation that you approve this proposal for the next 3 years.
Are we exempt from the bidding requirement on an issue like this, where we really, this is a fundamental financial interest of the city?
You do not have to bid out professional services. You can if you'd like to, but you do not have to.
I'll make a motion, we approve the proposal as described in item N.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Semo, second by Commissioner Kayers to approve the proposal outlined in item M. Any further discussion or concerns?
Is this, are these, I'm trusting your professional judgment, are these costs in line, like with what they're charging, is that in line with what a typical audit would cost?
Yes, yes, it is. They've done their best to keep costs down. Typically, you're seeing 3% increases each year. We're actually seeing this 1% decrease. They've been auditing the city for a number of years now, and 2 years with myself, and we've taken the steps to try to streamline the process, put more on my shoulders, get more done up front, so they have to do less tedious work when they get here to try and look into details. So I believe it is in line with where it should be. They did show us, tell us the numbers, what they were expecting to give us. I thought they were fine at the time. When they actually gave us the proposal, it was a little bit less than what we expected. But through talks with the partners down there, again, it's due to us doing more at the city level. So when they come here, we're prepared, we're ready, and they can get down to what they're here to do and really hammer out the bugs.
I appreciate the longevity, I'm sure, is probably pretty good to, when they're digging through your finances. All right, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Semo and a second by Commissioner Kayers to approve the proposal in item M. Any further discussion or concerns?
Kayers.
Yes.
Semo.
Yes.
Sim.
Yes.
Sauer.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes. Item N, discuss US2 overhead power lines street lighting.
Again, this is a point of discussion we had down and out over the last year with the US2 project. US2 project is on track for construction this year for the first phase and second phase in 2015. We did meet about 2 weeks ago with Xcel Energy. We asked them a while back to put a proposal together what these costs would be to essentially put up, replace the poles and bury the power lines. And again, when we talk about buried power lines, we talk about the power lines that are going along US2, not the ones that necessarily cross US2. If you remember, we had talked about it. All the power lines are buried. It was in the millions of dollars to do that. So these are the overhead lines you're seeing as you travel along US2 that feed the streetlights out there. Xcel Energy did take a look at this and give us some cost proposals to do that. What their proposal includes is putting streetlights back on the north side of US2. Right now they kind of hopscotch back and forth. So they would put the lights back along the north side of US2, similar to what you see in Bessemer. You've gone through there, it would be very similar to that. It would be a composite black, they call it a bronze pole, a black looking pole, not wood. Again, we would be paying for the upgrade. If we don't do anything, then you put wood poles back. So what's proposed here is burying the lines, putting back a black composite pole. And then there are a couple different options with the type of lamps that you have on top of there. Just on that type of information, there's the standard, they call it Cobra head, is what you see around town right now, versus we call it a shoebox style that's in our parking lots. It's a little more aesthetic. There's a little more cost to that. So again, the cost proposal to the city to bury those lines, have the poles put back in only on the north side. It amounts to about 50 poles, what they're talking in the 2 phases. Ranges from about $96,000 to $108,000, depending on the type of fixture you want on top of that pole, whether it be the Cobra head that you have here, or if you want to scroll up. There's shoebox style or anything. There's enough aesthetic value there. It is a little different. Not included in this price are if you want banner hangers, and they could give a price for that, and you expect them to get a price back to us. And also electric outlets. If you want to have an electric outlet on that pole, so you can plug in Christmas lights or something in the future. That would be an additional cost on outlets.
And we haven't gotten that number yet.
We have not gotten it yet from them. With this, funding wise, we have to look for grant funding. We're not finding any grant, we have not found any grant funding that we can use to pay for this. So you're looking at, budgeting either through the general fund if you want to do this. There is a possibility through MDOT of getting a loan, through them, a low interest loan. So we could pursue that. And again, that might, if you wanted to, you could stretch it out over a few years, keep your payments down at a low interest rate possibly. Those are the two funding options that we've considered.
I'd like to fill in a few other things. In our conversation with Excel, they indicated that the work is basically all going to expand the highway to the north. And so the first part of this chart says that the replacement cost will be $87,000 plus. That's on option one. And so basically they will credit us that cost against the cost of blue lights. And I'm not saying this very well, but if we were to do this later, you could add that 87,000 to any number that we would pay. In other words, that's our savings by doing it now, at least.
By doing it now, if you were to try to do this in the future after the project, the cost is probably going to be at least triple. You have a lot of restoration costs that are being absorbed by the project right now.
Right, plus restoration. So just for your knowledge, though, no work is going to be done on basically on the south side. So if we were to not do anything, those light poles would just stay the way they are. And I had one question that they didn't answer. Would they absorb the cost of removing everything on the south side of the highway?
That is part of my understanding. That is part of their, they would absorb that. That's my understanding.
So there will be no utility poles on the south side of that.
Right.
If, with this proposal.
Except for where primary lines cross. All the lines running along the highway are, correct me if I'm wrong, all they do is feed the light poles. So all the lines going along the highway can be eliminated on the south side and buried on the north side by this proposal. So doing what's indicated here, we can get rid of almost all lines that are along the highway. And plus get more attractive light poles. So the numbers are a lot lower than some of those ballpark numbers that I threw us earlier on. I thought it really changed in this conversation. They seem to not even want to talk about this every month. So it's nice to see that coming around. And
What do you mean by that?
well, when we first, they just weren't even interested in talking about burying lines. Oh, it's too expensive, you can't do it. They just didn't even want to talk about it. Now they're, yes, we can do it, and here's what it costs. They've come a long way.
Xcel Energy's preference is not to bury lines. They told us they'd rather have line poles overhead. It's easier to work on from their perspective. So again, they'll work with us on these, and they kind of come around with providing a proposal. Originally, they're not too receptive to trying to bury lines, even though they do it quite often around the area.
And the other part of this is a 2-year project. So again, we could, if we do decide to do it, we can fund it through loans, or we can directly fund it, but it would be over a 2-year period if we wanted to directly fund it. We wouldn't have to fund the entire amount in 1 year. We could fund the west portion the first year and the eastern portion the second year. So those are our choices.
Well, I think we have one chance to do this correctly in our lifetimes. I don't see them rebuilding those two like anytime. When's the last time we rebuilt those two?
It would probably be another 50 years.
I'm still around all this up here. So, I think we proceed with it.
What do you need from us tonight, Scott?
I guess if it's your direction to go forward with getting the lights buried, maybe a motion to that extent. If you want to pursue, it'd be good direction for us if you want to pursue looking at a loan, or you want to budget it through our budget process. Or do you want to, if you have both the time, we can get you both, more information as we go through the budget process here so you can make that decision
I'd like to see like additional information, you know, we're gonna do this, we do it once, to see what it would be to have the banners or, you know, the outlets on it. If we're gonna do this, you know, just let's explore all of our options at one time. So I would like to see that information. And then as far as like looking at the lights, is there any one versus the other that's better, provides better lighting, or is it just a matter of looks?
I think it's more aesthetics.
They're both 250 watts. If you want to see an example of the Rectal here, which is the slightly more expensive one, go look at it in the parking lot by the mural. And that's kind of like that for me. Versus the typical Cobra head that you see pretty much everywhere. We needed the number for the banner holders, which we do.
Right.
You don't have to do the banner holders right away, but they have to be an approved banner holder. But we do need to do the record folders right away if we're going to do that. So a minimum we need that.
Actually, both numbers, if you want a full package and decide to what extent you want to go forward with this.
And they said that they're working on getting those numbers for us. Accept it. So do we need a motion, continue directing you to move
I think a
forward?
motion to direct, you know, us moving forward with getting the lights buried. Again, there'd be a lot of additional discussion and action for the commission to take down the road.
Well, I'd like to make a motion saying that it's the will of the city commission to move forward on this project and to come up with at least a couple of different funding scenarios.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Seaman, second by Commissioner Kayer, to move forward with the US2 overhead power lines project and explore, what else?
Funding options.
And explore funding options. Any further discussion or concerns on this item? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item O, discussion consider approving resolution 014-001, adjusting the water and sewer rates.
This item is coming maybe a few months earlier than we normally present it to you. Typically during our budget process, we look at rates, have that discussion with the commission in the budget discussions. With the timing of the US2 project and our other local project north of US2, the 30 block area that we're going to be doing water and sewer in, we're moving forward with obtaining and getting loans through USDA rural development. That's where the funding comes from. It's essentially a 40-year loan at low interest rates. For us to take the next step and proceed with that, which we are doing, there's a whole series of things that checklists that we have to go through. One of those are the rates in place. And City Commission, your staff input has taken a philosophy, if you will. We've been adjusting the rates a little bit every year. So we've actually been planning for this project over the last 3 years. We've adjusted rates over the last 2 years incrementally. So it's not one big adjustment at the beginning. So again, this adjustment, if we're going through that process, we're taking place probably in June. So again, we're a few months earlier to do it, to take it, have that discussion now. But it does need to get done for us to move forward with rural development. The Michigan Department of Transportation has their project on track. They're designing it, they're going out for bids. So we need to take the next step, get rates in place, and then we'll be bringing more information back to the commission on finalizing the loans and rural development. So with that, we do have the rates laid out that take into account additional project costs, making sure we have the funds to pay for the loan over time. With the water system, we're looking at a 6.56% increase. With it, we also have a 0.9% inflationary increase. Again, the commission has adopted a resolution to look at inflationary increases, just so we're not going backwards in maintaining the water system. The sewer rates we'd be looking at a 3.26% increase with a 0.9% inflationary increase.
Are these the increases that we discussed last year in the workshop? We said these are the increases these are the numbers that we're gonna have to come up with to make the US2 and Phase 3 work. Are these those exact increases?
I'd have to go back and look at what the numbers were back then. They're right in line with that. The inflationary increase is separate from that. That's a separate resolution the commission had passed. The percentages, to give you an idea, the water percent, this is what it's going to take to have enough funding to pay off the So they're in line with that. I just can't say it was 6.56% or what the number was back then, but again, it's been an incremental 3-year approach that we've taken to do this. The sewer number, just so you know, does have built-in, Bob,
I can't remember the percentage line in front of me, but is that about the wastewater?
yeah, I think it's 2%
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Again, the wastewater, we also go through the budget every year with the wastewater plant. So including that 3.26% is an additional 2% for the wastewater treatment plant. Again, we don't know exactly what that number is. We're trying not to come back again in June and say we need another increase. We're trying to do it all, today if we can. So,
And like you said, the cost of living is only 0.9%, and I think last year was close to 3%. So the cost of living increase is minimal, probably less than 1/3 of last year.
and we actually go back to go and look at, there's tables out there, what that cost of living is.
What's the effective date? January 28th?
It actually is, we have to have it in place right away, so we can get this information to rural development, and then get that loan process moving forward, so.
And Scott, just to add, I believe that 6% is on the fixed cost, if I'm not mistaken, not the full. So the rates is actually made up of fixed cost and then usage, based on usage.
Cost, right.
That 6% is only a portion of the actual bill. So if you were to spread that percentage over, what is the actual percentage increase to an individual's bill? It's not 6% on top of everything. It's on the fixed cost only.
Good point.
And there's no change on the meter cost?
That is the meter cost, is 6.
So the commodity cost.
The measured portion. You've got your fixed cost and your cost for usage, your meter cost.
Yeah.
So your actual water cost will not change, but your fixed cost will change.
Your meter measures, that cost won't change.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the water and sewer rates itemized in resolution 014-001.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Semo, second by Commissioner Tower, to approve resolution 014-001 as described in item O. Any further discussions or concerns on this item? Roll call.
Seymour.
Yes.
Sim.
Yes.
Tower.
Yes.
Care.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes. Item P, discuss and consider approving water and sewer operating budgets for the new water and sewer project phase 3 in the city of Ironwood and authorize approval of the signatures.
And again, part of the rural development planning process, it does force the city to look at our budgets and make sure we have the dollars to do what we need to do from a maintenance standpoint, operations, and also pay the debt service for the loans. So part of the requirement is that an operating budget be developed. There's one for water and one for sewer in your packet. It just lays out where the dollars are going and what the expenses are associated with the water plant and the sewer plant.
And these budgets have been reviewed by Paul and
It's been reviewed by Paul, myself, rural development, has looked these numbers over very thoroughly, comm engineering.
I'll make a motion we approve the budgets described in item P.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Semo, second by Commissioner Kayer, to approve the water and sewer operating budgets as described in item P. Any further discussion or concerns? Roll call.
Sim.
Yes.
Tower.
Yes.
Care.
Yes.
Seymour.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes. Item Q, discuss and consider approving resolution 014-002, a resolution of understanding and amending management agreements with Rohit Iron Wastewater Authority and Board of the City of Ironwood.
Again, this is another, I'll call it somewhat of a housekeeping item relative to the rural development bond, the funding that we're getting. What's required by rural development is that we secure that we are going to be a member of the Rohit Iron Wastewater Plant for at least the length of the bonds, so at least 40 years. So we've had to extend the date out to accommodate for that. We've actually got a little extra time, and there's a couple extra years in here. If we talk to rural development, they said, put a little wiggle room in there in case, you need a little extra time. So this would bring out our agreement with the wastewater plant and the other members to 2060. So this would be a step City Commission has to take. Ironwood Township also has a similar resolution, as does the City of Burley. And we all have to basically confirm that we're extending all our agreements out to 2060.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 014-002.
Motion by Commissioner Semo, second by Commissioner Tower to approve resolution 014-002 is outlined in item Q. Any further discussion or concerns? Roll call.
Howard.
Yes.
Canary.
Yes.
Seymour.
Yes.
Sim.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes. Item R, manager's appointment to the Ironwood Housing Commission.
With the Housing Commission Board, we do have a Housing Commission member, Catherine Pavelski, has been on the board for a number of years. She has a term that is not yet expired, and she is just having some medical issues, not able to attend meetings. So I am recommending that at this point we replace Catherine with another member who's not able to attend. Again, we'll do a thank you. She's been on that board for a long time, has been a real asset to the board and to the city of Ironwood. So my recommendation is to replace Catherine's open term, which would be ending June 30th, 2017, with Adrian Chase, and her information is in your packet. She's very qualified and she's very enthusiastic to be on board.
Adrian is outstanding, and I'll make a motion that we approve the manager's appointment to the Housing Commission.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Semo, second by Commissioner Sim to approve the manager's appointment to the Ironwood Housing Commission. Any further discussion or concerns? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item S, mayor's appointment to the Planning Commission. At this time, I would like to appoint Mark Silver to fill the term that will expire 12/31/16.
And I think that's another great choice, and I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's appointment to the finance commission.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Semo, second by Commissioner Tower to approve the mayor's appointment of Mark Silver to the Planning Commission. Any further discussion or concerns? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item T, manager's report.
Just a few items to update Commission on. Last week, we want to thank everybody for the participation in all the process that took place with the community input for the comprehensive plan development. Again, it was a full week of community input. Got a lot of good information. The consultants are digesting that. They can bring back a draft plan. Michael, anything to add to that? Is there still opportunity for some input if people are interested?
Yes, the survey that's out will close January 31st, so if you haven't taken that, encourage people to do so online through the website. We're also having a photo contest, so any photos of Ironwood or within the area that you would like to submit to be in the plan, you will be put on the plan, so it's another way to participate. And then too, in the future, as the draft plans come back to the city, we'll be having some more public meetings where the community can come, review the plan, and provide feedback on the direction of the plans.
All right. A few project-related topics. Jake's Excavating, we have the demolition going on up in Jesseville. With the weather, that's been somewhat on hold. So once the weather straightens out a little bit, they'll be back up there doing their removals. They have gotten information and approvals to bring it to the necessary landfills. We're also working with our logger, who is actively logging out by our pump station. And that's actually, the weather has been conducive to that. It freezes everything down, and he's doing a very good job out there. We'll be working through the budget process. Paul had sent out a list of different meetings and tasks relating to the 2014-15 budget development process. So we'll be meeting with the commission over the next few months on that, and also with staff members. At the next city commission meeting, I anticipate we'll be bringing back a draft, or actually a new contract proposal for refuse collection. Our contract is up here in June. we have to move that forward. We've got a lot of information, some different things we want to bring to the commission that hopefully will keep things streamlined, keep our costs down, and hopefully we'll get competitive bids again going through that process. Our Public Works Department is on schedule to remove snow downtown this week.
Wednesday and Thursday and Friday.
And Friday, so with all the snow we've been getting, things are building up downtown, also on US 2 and throughout the community, getting out there plowing and keeping the roads open. And again, our water department has been quite active with the cold weather. And again, knock on wood, our water main freezing have been little to none, and then service lines have been freezing. So, as you can imagine, we lowered our water mains down to 7 feet, so they're being protected. Unfortunately, some of the private service lines are still up a little higher, so we have a few of those that are freezing with the cold temperatures. Our water department staff meet with each of the residents and look at each situation and try to help them through that process. So, that's it in my report.
Thank you. Item U, other matters, 3 minutes. Item B, citizens wishing to address the commission on items not on the agenda. 5-minute limit, please. If you're able, please approach the podium and state your name.
You know, I want to humbly apologize for my ignorance, but I wanted to make a comment, but I didn't realize I had to do it at the beginning. Number one, I just want to comment on the fact of the safe routes to school. I really appreciate the work that they're doing, and I think it's a win-win situation for not only the city, but also for the schools and the children within our community. It's like I'm willing to work with the city anytime regarding Miners Memorial or any property that we have. You know, I think if we work together and, you know, to make that become a reality would only be a great thing for our city. When it looks at, so I mean, being that said, I really appreciate the work that Ian does, and I mean, a lot of us are busy, and I mean, sometimes I look at it and say, wow, I'm really impressed with what he gets done, and I look forward to seeing you, Mr. Sim, at some of the meetings so that, you know, you can hear and see more of the details that can go into it. The other thing I was gonna, there's 2 other things that I'm gonna do. You know, I appreciate what you've done for our library. I'll tell you right now, as an educational leader in our community, there is nothing more important than having a good library for kids to read. I will go back in my 31-year career, and I know that those kids that have succeeded were all, and our most successful people are those that do go in and read. Reading is one of the most important things we can do in our community, and especially I urge parents to encourage their kids. Just like when I said, well, school's going to be canceled today. Snuggle up to a good book and read on this cold day, okay? Because I truly do, and I will go and record anywhere, any place, to say reading is one of the most important things we can do. And you know, to support the library is something that I think is something that I truly thank every one of you, and see if we can all work together to keep that library, you know. And to me, I think it's a crime that the township doesn't take more of a part in it, because there's a lot of good people in the township that do, you know, utilize our library, and a lot of the things that we as taxpayers within the city pay for, that they get to ride on the taxes that we pay. Some may comment that, you know, well, we keep our taxes low and all this. Well, but we that live within the city are paying for things that make it better for everybody in this whole area. And I hope that someday, you know, we can be one unified body. And the last thing I just want to comment is, you know, we've had that accounting firm doing so many things, and Paul, I know I never talked to you, but I mean, I tell my board the exact same things as Paul told you. You know, they know what we're doing. I was lucky enough to rob Courtney Maslunta away from that firm to work for me and our district, but they are phenomenal. They help me throughout the year to keep our budget in line. Any question I may have, so as as someone else in the community that utilizes that firm, let's keep it local and let's keep it productive. And I think you got a productive firm there that'll work with you to make this town a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Item W, adjournment.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Seymour, second by Commissioner Ayers to adjourn this meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no.